It's our second one here on virtually. Is a white shark the right shark? And investigating the most famous shark attack of them all. But he's also, David is also going to be expanding upon that and just being able to tell us a little bit about sharks in general. And I'm so thankful that he's able to be with us. So I think that our speaker would always believe it's a good time to talk about sharks, and that's a good thing because that's what he's involved in. But I chose this date when I asked him because the 1916 shark attacks took place between July 1st and 12th down here at the Jersey Shore. And then August 9th this year is the start of Shark Week. So I thought it would be a good kind of way to get our feet in the water, so to speak. So let's find out some things about shark. But first, if you ever came to our regular author talks at the library, I have my little ads to do. Please remember to check our events on the State Library website because we've got some other webinars that we offer. We've got one called Gentle Yoga that's coming up on July 22nd. And on the 27th is a webinar done by Regina, who just spoke on genealogy resources and programs at the New Jersey State Library. And she really keeps up on those types of things and it's going to be a really good webinar. So check these out, and you have to register for them if you're interested, but just go to our website and click on events and you'll be able to see what we have available. Dave Grant, our speaker today, is the Conservation Director of the Shark Research Institute, which is located in Princeton, New Jersey. And he works in the best of both worlds. He works in the classroom and in the field. His passion for marine life conservation has led him to the Arctic and the Antarctic and some of the world's most isolated places, such as Komodo, Easter, and Pitcairn Islands. And Dave has observed sharks in the distant waters of Panama, the Galapagos and Midway Islands, and closer to home in New Jersey, Florida, California, and Cape Cod. He's also participated in research cruises on NOAA, NOAA, and university vessels. He has written about a number of ocean-related topics and is published in Natural History, Underwater Naturalist, Current, and Audubon. He has received numerous accolades for his work in education and conservation, including the EPA's Environmental Quality Award, and that award honors individuals, businesses, and organizations that have contributed significantly to improving the environment and protecting public health in New Jersey, New York, Puerto Rico, and the U.S. Virgin Islands. So please welcome with me Dave Grant, and let's find out about some sharks. Thanks, Dave.
Thank you, Cindy and Regina. And I hope you can hear me clear.
Yes, we can hear you, and I've just made you the presenter. So whenever you want to pull up your slides, you should be good to go.
Well, I have them up. Can you see them?
Not yet. Click share your screen.
I'm sorry?
Click share your screen.
All right, let's try that again.
Yeah, and I can just make sure. Okay. Yeah, and you're currently the presenter, so you should be good to go.
How about now?
Yes, now we can see.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm impressed by your ability to manage the technology, so thanks.
Oh, well, thank you. I can manage sharks, so there you go. That's why you're here.
Well, I'm sorry I can't be at the library today as we had planned, but I'm delighted that you were able to pull this together, and I think it's a great idea to do these talks. I did modify things a little bit since it is an author's talk. I don't have any books to sell, but I do have some articles to suggest and other people's books that are showing quite a bit of detail, talk about the 1916 events. And I think it's a great week to do this. So let's hope everything's going to work here. And okay. So this is a quote from, I'm paraphrasing Benchley on this, that every young person is interested in sharks or dinosaurs. That's a picture of me in the Indian Ocean with the world's largest tortoise. So I'm the one with a hat on. The working with the sharks in the Institute has given me an opportunity to travel around to a lot of different places. And so I certainly appreciate sharks for that, as well as the Institute and the conservation efforts we do. This is a little bit about me. Most of my time over the years has been working out at Sandy Hook with horseshoe crabs and studying wetlands. And you can see the little horseshoe crab there pointing to Horseshoe Cove. That's where I'm oftentimes found working with different marine life. And it's certainly a great place to visit as well as study. So the talk today, I'm going to try and cover probably too many things, but I have thrown in some literature about sharks and the shark attacks, and of course conservation and citizen science that we do. A little bit of oceanography, some history, geography. When I've done this talk in person, I do it as more of a quiz to interest the audience, but I've inserted the geography quiz answers and whatnot today, since I can't interact with the audience, and as well as see who's falling asleep while we're talking. So, and there's education materials that I will show here that are available on our website at sharks.org. So here are some links and some information more about me, some of the stuff that we have published at the Institute with our newsletter and other publications. And again, you can go to sharks.org for that. More recently, there's a picture of me doing my Christmas bird count on Midway Island off of Hawaii, and which I participate in elsewhere every year. That particular count a few years ago, I only had 15 species of birds, but of that, about 225,000 were lace and albatross that you see there. So, and besides fish, I'm quite interested in birds too. So, if you go to the website and our newsletters, you can read about some of the research that our members and scientists do. Most recently, we've been doing some work down in the Sea of Cortez, the Gulf of California, and these have become my favorite fish over the last few years. The mobilas, which are cousins of the manta rays, and we'll talk about those trips and whale shark studies there, and hopefully we'll be going back in the next year or so to expand our studies of these particular creatures. The book cited at the bottom is log from the Sea of Cortez, and I'll refer to that again. John Steinbeck wrote that with his trip down to the same location with Ed Ricketts, a famous marine biologist from Monterey. And there are various links here which may or may not work with the posted PDF that we have, but at the end of the program, I copied many of the links. So if they don't work in the presentation that you receive, you should be able to access them there. And obviously, you're welcome to email me with questions, or if you need other information. So this is down from one of our trips down at the southern end of the Baja Peninsula. and a quote from the introduction of Between Pacific Tides written by Ricketts, but the quote is from John Steinbeck. And if the video works here, I think I'll hopefully give you an idea of why I find these mobiles so fascinating. With luck, the video is running. And that is something that these fish seem to spend an inordinate amount of time doing, and are a great puzzle to ichthyologists. When fish jump out of the water, the default answer most biologists, ichthyologists say, oh, they're probably trying to shake parasites off. But that jumping behavior seems to have other purposes, and the sound travels, of course, a great distance and might encourage those creatures to gather up into the swarms that they form, which actually they call them fevers rather than schools of the mobilis. And again, they're quite interesting, but there's a lot of questions as to why they do it. So moving on, sharks are of interest to a lot of people, and they're oftentimes portrayed as weird or peculiar creatures like a lot of the other animals in the sea. But they're really an ancient and highly developed and well-evolved creature. They have filled almost every habitat in the sea, warm water, cold, deep water, shallow, and we'll explore that when we move along. So they're, of course, featured in, I'd like to say I've never seen any of these Sharknado movies, and I'm proud that I haven't. But what I like to point out is that the bad guy is always the white shark. If you take a closer look at the pictures here, and so the white shark always seems to get the worst rap when it comes to interactions with humans. So we're going to explore that a little bit today, and then go on to talk about some of the other sharks and some of our activities. So, of course, they're featured in artwork and cartoons and even TV shows. Not trying to be political, the picture on the upper right was sent to me by a high school chum who's a cartoonist that he published during the primaries years ago. And I did not hear it, but apparently Donald Trump had made some quote about hating sharks, which, of course, we love sharks. But the interesting sidebar is that we and a number of other conservation groups got quite a number of donations that people gave us in Donald Trump's name as a result of that. And we do have programs where people can adopt sharks and whatnot, and then track them as members. And another cartoon on the lower left, and this particular fellow, Brian Norell, does a lot of science cartoons also. And in the lower right, I don't know what to make of that picture, but again, it's the white shark getting a bad rap. So on a different note, the last few decades has seen ballooning population of seals recovering off of Cape Cod. And there's an old saying among biologists, if you want to find a predator, look for the prey. And the favorite prey of white sharks are big fatty creatures like seals. And so the white sharks have moved in and concentrated off of Cape Cod as a result. And Chatham has taken advantage of that. And sharks have been an attraction to tourists also. So, and this is pictures from festivals that they do celebrating white sharks. So, and of course, many museums and other places use sharks for advertising and publicity and marketing. And these are not commercial endorsements, but I did stock up on the Russell Stover candy boxes one year when they published their Jawsome collection. There are a lot of people studying sharks out at Sandy Hook. Jeff Dement from the Littoral Society is involved in tagging sharks and other fish. And you can see that sharks are caught quite frequently, and many different species in New Jersey. And you can participate in that in citizen science that he does with sharks and other fish. And the contact information, of course, is on that page. On the Institute website, we have educational materials for teachers. And this is just one of the pages that I oftentimes will give as a quiz with students after we've done a program on sharks. And again, there are other materials on shark habitat and taxonomy and whatnot on the Institute website. So there's a lot of things wrong with this cartoon picture, but I still love it with all the variety of things there. There are lots of fallacies about sharks, and we'll touch upon some of those and try to straighten those out, as well as give you more facts as we go on. So talk about shark attacks, shark bites. The sharks are not thought to be out looking for people to bite. And if you look at where a lot of the attacks occur, they're in coastal waters where the visibility is low. And sharks, they sense their environment with their face and their mouth, and they bump into things to see whether they're worth eating. And if you look in the lower right-hand corner off of Florida, there quite a concentration of shark encounters there. And oftentimes these are near fishing piers where fishermen are throwing bait and fish carcasses in the water, and people are swimming and surfing in the same area. And again, the water's churned up by the surf and all. So the sharks aren't always to blame. So if we look at different seasons, we can see there's a seasonality to shark bites also, and it's related to summer temperatures and water temperature. Sharks, many sharks are found in warm and cold water, but people generally are only found in warm water. And as you can see from this, that most of the majority of the encounters are after July 1st, when the water temperatures have warmed up. So, and a lot of these also are people swimming when they shouldn't be. They're out on the water at dusk, which is the feeding time for many types of fish, including sharks. So, and then a little bit on the geography of shark bites. There are many more encounters on the East Coast from a variety of shark species. but the ones that get the most publicity are on the West Coast in Hawaii, which again are white sharks, which make great news. And in Hawaii, the tiger shark, which is also formidable and always attracts a lot of attention. But again, those encounters are rare. So let's go back to 1916, and the most famous shark attack of all. And I've been to many states and different countries collecting information about sharks. And I'm always surprised at how many people around the country and around the world, when I say I'm from New Jersey and I mention sharks, are familiar of the famous 1916 attacks. There are 2 great books about this, and I believe the State Library has both of those, and I would encourage you to read them both, or to buy them both. Also, a more recent one, Dominic Mazzaghetti's Jersey Shore is a delightful story of all the coastal towns, and he has several good pages, the background of the 1916 attacks. And Angela Sartori wrote a great story in the article that I have linked at the bottom there on the right. I would encourage you to read that also. And she gives a lot of background on sharks as well as the attacks. So we'll go back to the attack, and I don't want to give you too many details, spoiler alert, and spoil your reading. But these are some pictures that I have dredged up from old newspaper clippings, and we'll go through those and talk about the attack before we move on to other sharks. So again, if you read up on it a bit, an individual, a hotel worker, was first struck on July 1st down in Beach Haven. His name was Van Sant, and it sounds like it was a very dreadful event at the beach on an otherwise peaceful and sunny day. You couldn't have developed a better scenario for a book or an adventure or a horror story than this. Of course, a few days later, Spring Lake, another person is struck swimming off the Essex Hotel right in Spring Lake there. And then a week later, of course, the event in Matawan. And the question is, was it the same shark? There was also an attack in Asbury Park after the Spring Lake attack. Someone out on a little patrol boat off the beach was quote unquote attacked by a shark, bumping the boat. But we will move on to Matawan. I do like the quote from Thoreau up in Cape Cod, though, about our image and reputation that we give to sharks. So I wanted to share that. So I love looking at the newspaper articles from that week, and of course, as always, the newspaper writers want to catch your eye. And starting at the top at the red arrow, you can see demand state aid in killing sharks. And then the lower one, hundreds of armed men searching. And then the one that I love the best, the arrow at the bottom, women are panic stricken, which is a good example of the writing style of those days. So Philadelphia Inquirer, notice the top arrow, it was a huge shark. It was a man-eater. like snakes and spiders, you know, people never report small ones. They're always big, huge. But there was quite an uproar during that week, and the Smithsonian got involved and researched. The state and federal government were being chastised for not acting on this and trying to go to war with these sharks. And then the bottom arrow, the government was pitching in to help stamp out the shark horror. But then the middle arrow, if you note, 3 die of heat that same week. And of course, if you research it at all, you know that many more people are killed by bee stings and dog bites and other things, the hippopotamuses and all. And so shark bites really are a very rare occurrence, and you're much more likely to get struck by lightning or stung by a bee at the beach. So more on the Philadelphia Inquirer that week. And this almost slipped by me. And if you look at the bottom there, the fishermen, when they cut it open, found 12 baby sharks. So obviously female. And this is certainly not a good thing for the population, because sharks are very slow reproducers. When they are wiped out from a particular area for whatever reason, overfishing or panic from shark attacks, it will take a very long time for the populations to reestablish themselves if they can. And being the top predators, just like lions and tigers, they're very important to the ecosystem and maintaining it. So I will note too that, and it never dawned on me, but a student pointed it out to me, that a number of creatures, females will stop feeding when they're about to give birth. And so in our case, trying to decide whether the white shark was the culprit or not, it's interesting to note, if that were the shark, it would perhaps be unusual that the shark was feeding while it was ready to give birth to young sharks. A couple of cartoons from different newspapers that week. The one on the left was something political, and I never found out what the explanation of that, the friendly shark. But I did get a kick out of the bathing suit cartoon on the right. So again, more newspaper, shark hunters and big man eaters, great headlines. And then the bottom arrow, armed posses combing the coast to snuff out man-eating sharks. And of course, here, 2 of the 3 victims in Matawan Creek here. And in 1916, there was a memorial, a little bit of a festival about reliving that experience. And again, I don't want to spoil your reading for you, but young boy Lester was attacked while swimming, and then Stanley Fisher went in to rescue him, but was also bitten. And a third child, Joseph Dunn, was bitten later on in the day, again apparently by the same shark. So here's a little memorial from the events in 2016, when the town celebrated the event. And again, some newspaper pictures of the manhunt going on, looking for the huge monster shark. And this is Matawan Creek. And biologically, ecologically, you would not expect to find a white shark up in this area. At low tide, this is fresh water flowing out. At high tide, it's brackish water. And white sharks are an oceanic species, a pelagic species that you would normally find well offshore in ocean water. So that's makes it suspect as to whether the shark that was caught a week later out in Sandy Hook Bay was the true culprit. So, and this is at same site, Mattawan Creek, that many people drive over, thousands drive over on their way to the Jersey Shore every day around exit 117. And again, it's a narrow brackish water creek that you would not expect to find a white shark hanging out. So again, another great quote from Thoreau up at Cape Cod, and my favorite picture of all from that event, obviously staged by the newspaper people. So this is more where we would expect to find white sharks, and you can see one cruising the edge of the herd of seals up at Cape Cod. And the shark observing has become quite an entertainment up there. Also, when some of these sharks are spotted, and researchers, of course, are studying them in much more detail than we ever had the opportunity, and in some cases tagging them to study them and track them, which we'll talk about. So a NOAA biologist who used to work at Cape Cod, Jack Casey, who has, as I understand, has retired, studied white sharks also, and he speculated from reports that were available, the few reports were available, that the white sharks probably had a nursery to give birth off of Long Island. And a lot of the tagging data seems to be confirming that. So you can see the summer area where there would have been reports of white sharks up off of Cape Cod and the Gulf of Maine, and then the wintering down near the mid-Atlantic bight there off of the Carolinas. So the dots here are not all that accurate, but they show the problem years ago trying to study the movement of these creatures. People like Jeff Dement, who I mentioned earlier, have historically tagged fish when they caught them, but they don't know where the fish goes or what it does until it's caught again somewhere else, miles away or thousands of miles away and years later. The more modern satellite tags, which we'll look at now, give researchers the ability to keep tabs on these fish constantly. And so it's really opened the eyes of researchers to these various behaviors. So here's the satellite tracking of a white shark and through the seasons. And you can see it's pretty much following the thoughts and research of Jack Casey. New England in the summer, off the Carolinas in the winter. What is quite interesting and unusual is the offshore travel all the way out to Bermuda. And that is quite new and very interesting, that these fish are such great wanderers, and they're going to places that are away from their main food supply too. So, and various groups, as well as ours, are studying sharks and encouraging conservation of sharks. So, I've had a chance to visit and interact a number of aquariums, including over in Sweden, where they petition shark conservation, and you can do that closer to home in Point Pleasant at Jenkinson's Aquarium, where you can see lots of big, healthy live sharks, as well as sign petitions and learn more about them. And various local groups like us promote shark conservation. And we do trips related to sharks. Here's some students who caught a small dogfish to tag and release. And we also collect fossil shark's teeth on some of our stream walks to encourage young students to get interested in sharks and conservation. So here are a couple of specimens that were caught on one of our August trips out in Sandy Hook Bay, where we take a quick look at the anatomy of the shark. In the upper right, here's a parasitic copepod that one of the researchers was collecting to study. And of course, talk about all the various incredible adaptation sharks have. So, this is something we have mixed feelings about. And we don't encourage people swimming with sharks. Prior to the 1916 attacks, a lot of scientists said sharks do not attack people. In fact, of all people, Teddy Roosevelt was out on a yacht off of New Jersey in the 1890s, 1891, and the yacht owner, whose name was Orrick, jumped off to demonstrate sharks were safe. Jumped off into the water to show that the sharks swimming around there were safe and would not attack him. And according to legend, used to offer a $500 reward for anybody who could prove that sharks attack people. But of course, those attitudes all changed in 1916. So I didn't give Henry Beston credit for that quote. He wrote The Outermost House up in Cape Cod. So again, I have mixed feelings about this Ocean Ramsey and what she does, but it's interesting pictures to say the least, and does give us a different picture of shark behavior. So this is obviously a white shark. So, this is the whale shark, which is what we have been studying over the last few years on our projects down in Baja, and also our research director works in the Red Sea on whale sharks. Another researcher is working with tiger sharks off Hawaii. I've worked with dogfish that migrate through in Sandy Hook Bay. But the whale sharks are certainly a favorite of many people, and they're a very important tourist attraction down in Mexico for local fishermen to supplement their income, taking pictures, passengers out rather, to see the whale sharks and to swim with them. We do not do this. We don't touch sharks, and the Mexican government has been very good in regulating that local industry too, to help protect the sharks from tourists and fishermen. So, back to Sandy Hook. The folks down at Brigantine, when they rehabilitate seals in the winter, bring them up to Sandy Hook to release them, which is a good thing. But the seal population in the winter has grown in Sandy Hook Bay also. And they used to be a rare sighting, but sometimes you'll see 50 or 60 of them in the winter off of Fort Hancock on Sandy Hook. So I wonder if, again, as the biologists say, if you want to find the predator, look for the prey. And I'm wondering if in the not too distant future, we're going to see a white shark appear in Sandy Hook Bay again. So a little bit of oceanography. The white sharks we tend to encounter in the warmer water, and that's that thin layer of surface water in the ocean. Below about 100 meters, the ocean is quite cold, and there's less food for a creature like a white shark. And that's what's curious about that. If you look at the two white arrows here, the horizontal arrow is where you'd expect to find the sharks swimming around looking for prey up in the warmer waters in the summer. And then the vertical arrow, though, shows that the tagging has demonstrated that white sharks, as well as whale sharks and some others, for some reason will plunge into deep water, sometimes 1,000 feet deep or so. And the water temperature there is quite cold, 40 degrees. And again, raises a lot of questions about, well, why are the sharks doing this? Are they, again, the default answer with a lot of ichthyologists is, oh, they're probably trying to get rid of predators or parasites or something. But there's no need to think there's food for them down there. So there's certainly an opportunity for biologists to study and try and figure out what these big fish are doing. So let's dive into our argument about whether a white shark was the culprit in 1916, or was it perhaps a different shark or several different sharks. So, and one of the candidates is the bull shark, which, unlike the white shark, the bull shark is a coastal warm water shark and is a tough character. As the name implies, they're stocky, and the fishermen consider them a pretty tough customer. They don't get as big as the white sharks, but they are still substantial in size, as you can see. So here's a little activity that I do with students after we do a shark program, and a little matrix analysis comparing the white shark and the bull shark, and have the students evaluate the biology and the activities and range of both sharks in the right-hand columns to compare them, again, relating that back to the Matawan attack. And again, I encourage teachers can do this several ways depending on the age of the students. They can do it as a true and false quiz or a mock trial for against the white shark. But this is a good wrap up to see whether the students have paid attention and have really grasped some of the behavioral and biological traits from the creatures. So here's the yellow line. You can see the warm waters of the world, where warm coastal waters where bull sharks live. And I've gotten quite interested in those over the years and reports of those. And this is the geography part of our program. Again, I normally run this as a quiz and give the participants time to answer the questions as we search for bull sharks. But because of the nature of today's program, I have added the answers. Our two friends there, Herbert and Dudge, in the 1930s, had a fish robbing their fish traps all the way up in St. Louis. And eventually they caught this, a bull shark, 1,000 miles up the Mississippi, obviously in fresh water. And how about here? So, well, people have trouble figuring out the name of that particular shark that Dimitri is carrying there. So I throw in a clue as to where this picture is from. And you may not recognize this fisherman since he has a shirt on. He usually pictures he does not. But this is from St. Petersburg, Russia. And this is a shark from preserved in Moscow that, and occasionally bull sharks come up the river into St. Petersburg and well into fresh water and away from the ocean. So, Reunion Island. Oh, here's the language arts part of the quiz that I usually do. I apologize, with shark names and all. Reunion Island is French and in the southern Indian Ocean, and the locals have been were killing off sharks there in the tourist areas, and the sharks were not necessarily a problem. However, after the big pelagic sharks were killed off, the coastal bull sharks moved in and have wreaked havoc with swimmers and surfers. And the surfers call Reunion Island the shark attack capital of the world now. So I have a colleague who worked on at Moat Marine Lab, and one year they had what they called the surprise storm. A hurricane formed very quickly on the Gulf, came in and flooded the lab, and the next morning he had a 6-foot shark stranded in his office there. Again, not white sharks. It's coastal sharks like the bull shark that we find in along the beaches. So again, another quiz question. If you know your Spanish, tiburon for shark. And these are bull sharks, which are famous for not just swimming upriver into Lake Nicaragua, but actually living there and reproducing. So, and there are a number of rivers around the world, warm water rivers, where they hang around the brackish water areas and occasionally move into upstream into freshwater. So, and here, if you know you're Australian, here's a bull shark stranded after a hurricane surge. So, most recently, I was able to go sail up on the Amazon River, studying some of the fish there, sawfish and bull sharks. And the link there, if it is there and at the end of the program, you can go to our newsletter and read about what we've been doing down there. The most interesting picture, which took me quite a while to track down, is on the right. Was collected by Herbert Axelrod, a well-known ichthyologist, who there are about a dozen scientific reports of bull sharks 1,000 miles up the Amazon, all the way to Bolivia and Peru. And this is a picture he collected, I believe, in the late 1950s of a local with a carved shark motif. So obviously the natives up there are familiar with, and there are reports of them harvesting and drying the shark meat, which they sell as catfish meat. And in the center is, I was lucky enough to go snorkeling and ran into a boto, the famous pink dolphin of the Amazon there. So not a shark, not as dangerous as a shark, but still pretty formidable with all those teeth. And on the left, again, recruiting some of the locals down there in Brazil to help me at the fish markets look for shark's teeth and other evidence of locals harvesting those and the sawfish. So a few years ago, I was lucky enough to work on boats up off Norway and Iceland, and we were looking for this particular shark, the basking shark, which is the second largest of the sharks. like the whale shark, a filter feeder, and a culprit in many cases of reports of sea monsters, since sometimes they will swim in lines of 2 or 3 or 20, and with those dorsal and tail fins sticking out, look like a giant sea serpent from a boat. They're harmless, of course, unless you bump into them with your boat. So they're threatened and were harvested in great numbers historically for their livers, which make up about 1/3 of their body. The liver was marketed as cod liver oil. So, the Greenland shark is one of the sleeper sharks and is sometimes called the zombie of the deep. It's a sluggish, slow-moving shark. It's quite large, over 20 feet, and is thought to be predominantly a scavenger. But historically, it's been a food of the Vikings in Iceland. And on the bottom left is the dried and fermented meat from a Greenland shark. And the bottom right is one of 3 that were harvested when I was in Iceland a few years ago. The Vikings would catch the shark, prepare it, and bury the meat in the sand on the beach for about 4 to 6 months to ferment, and then they dry it. And the shark meat can be very delicious, but it's very high in uric acid, urea, which gives it the smell and taste of ammonia. So it has to be processed before it can be eaten. Although the smell, and I have not tried the Icelandic dish, but I did read it described as the taste and texture of a urine-soaked mattress. So if you're ever in Iceland, you can get it at some restaurants. But again, I have had no interest in sampling it. So a few years ago, I was able to hitch a ride on a ship returning to Europe from South America and Antarctic trips. And this was an opportunity to sail to several of the most isolated islands in the world. Tristan da Cunha, British Overseas Territories, St. Helena, where Napoleon was imprisoned, Ascension Island up on the equator, and South Georgia, which is oftentimes called the Galapagos of the Antarctic. So there is fishing regulations around Antarctica, and as I was understand and was told, there is no shark fishing going on there now. This is one of my favorite creatures from down there, a young elephant seal. Always kind of reminds me of one of the Teletubbies, 500-pound Teletubby. So farther north off the coast of South Africa is Tristan da Cunha, the most isolated community of people in the world. And they were able to present me with a white shark jaw from a 4,500-pound white shark that they caught. This was not caught intentionally by fishermen. It died when it became entangled with the traps and netting of their lobster traps. They are the main source of what's called the South African lobster, which you could buy today in the supermarket frozen. This was a huge shark, and again, killed accidentally by fishing gear. They did not have any photographs of it, but it was probably, my guess is, not only was it probably the biggest one ever caught down in that area, but probably a female. And those islands down there are great haunts for seals. And of course, this is where you would expect to find white sharks hanging out, where they could get a good meal. Plenty of wildlife down there. And again, if you go to the the links that I've provided, you can see more information about the sharks and creatures like the great wandering albatross here. So farther north, St. Helena in warmer waters, it's great diving, and we regularly saw whale sharks there of different sizes, males and females, and it's big mystery as to where these sharks gather, where they reproduce, how often they reproduce, when do they give birth. And our research director, Jennifer Schmidt, is working on DNA analysis of whale sharks from around the world, trying to see how isolated these populations are, whether they interbreed with each other, and how threatened they are from overfishing. So, this is about a 30-footer. So up at the equator, Ascension Island is the biologists there are very active in studying sharks and preserving the fish populations there. And they were aware of the 1916 attack of in Matawan, even though they're in one of the most isolated places on the planet. So, so here's information from one of their surveys of wildlife that they do down on the island. So, and another place, it's even warmer water there, close to the equator, and is also great diving, but has a very high population of sharks, which is a good thing, a good sign ecologically. So, however, from overfishing, they consider most of their local sharks as being threatened, including the whale shark there. So 2 years ago, I was able to spend a good part of the winter at Midway Island, and the link there is to an article about that. When the albatross had fledged in July and trying to learn how to fly, the tiger sharks in Hawaii cruised 1,000 miles out to Midway Island and start to collect there. And one of their main sources of food are the fledgling albatross that have not learned to fly. And the picture in the bottom left is actually a picture from the space shuttle of the atoll of Midway Island, the famous Navy base that was attacked by the Japanese in 1942. I did have the opportunity to dive, but most of the work was with studying the albatross there, the plastics that wash up on the beach, and that they mistakenly eat, thinking that they are food sources like squid, and also monitoring climate change issues out there. So fishing is no longer permitted there, but here is a tiger shark that was caught over 20 years ago at Midway. And again, it's an absolutely fabulous diving area, since it's part of the protected zone of the northwestern Pacific Islands. So it's one of the last holdouts of the monk seal. And again, another reason why you would expect to find large sharks there, feeding on big, yummy, fat creatures like the monk seal. So, there are a number of species of sharks there, bonnet heads and hammerheads, Galapagos, some of the gray reef sharks, and so I'm not much of an underwater photographer, but the fish are pretty close and tame there. So I have to tell a story or two, and again, I don't know, since I can't see the audience, I don't know the age and spread, but and my dog up in the upper left, if we ever meet, I have a story or two to tell about that. But it reminds me of a fishtail by a marine biologist and writer, Dave Bullock, who used to come out to Sandy Hook and work a lot. And his favorite story, which he says is true, was about he and a biologist from out there, Frank, who were sitting on the dock at Sandy Hook, dangling their feet in the water. And Frank almost got dragged into the water by a dark shape that moved under the dock. And he screamed, "My God, a shark has just bitten my toe." And Dave asked him, "Which one?" And he said, "I don't know. There are over 400 different species." So moving along. In the bottom is Rusty the Wonder Dog, who loved to go collect dead sharks on the beach because they're so smelly and fun to roll in. And unfortunately, if you want to see dogfish, go to Sandy Hook in September when they are migrating south, and fishermen catch them and consider them bait stealers, and they just toss them up on the beach to die. So you can sometimes rescue a shark as well as anger a fisherman by tossing them back in. So, farther north, I've interacted with folks that are working with the porbeagle sharks up in the Gulf of Maine. And this is a threatened shark also. It's been over-harvested for about 100 years. And it's a cousin of the white shark. Not as big, but still formidable. And researchers up there are catching them not for food, but to tag them with satellite tags. This is a spot tag, which when the fin comes out of the water, it will broadcast data to a satellite and give us a good picture of where these sharks are migrating to and breeding and traveling to throughout the summer. And we're in the home stretch here. A little plug for some of the activities we do down off of Baja. And here's a link to the researchers that we sail with Pantera. It really is, I believe it was Jacques Cousteau who coined the term the world's aquarium, and it really is a special place, an incredible concentration of marine life of all types. It has great bird watching too. This is a map of the Gulf, and again, a plug for Steinbeck's book, Sea of Cortez, which I would encourage you to read even if you never go down there. But when you read the book, when you're down there, you can almost pick out the spots that he wrote about and are almost unchanged. This is our research director, Jennifer Schmidt, who is a world authority on white sharks. And they're not white sharks, I'm sorry, whale sharks. And then the fellow who's all the way up on the bowsprit there suddenly remembers that he did not put a life jacket on. It's going to look pretty stupid in this picture. Here's the map on the right, and the star is down near La Paz, which is where we sail out of a pleasant little Mexican village, Old Mexico. And the picture on the left, I didn't understand why the crew were pointing to this spot to take pictures. And it wasn't until I looked at the picture when I got home that the cave here forms a map of the Baja. So the air map there. So this is our target species on several trips down there. And in 2017, this was the first shark we found. And the researcher that identifies it as a new catalog species is allowed to give it a name. And this is a 37-foot female. And the Mexican researcher who got our sample first identified it, named it after her mother, Guadalupe. So the process is you throw a student overboard with the camera and get a picture of the side of the shark. The spots are like fingerprints and use a NASA star identification chart on board to see whether the shark has been photographed before or not. If it has not, then a tissue sample is taken, and Jennifer analyzes that back at her lab. Other students will take turns doing aerial surveys to find the females. The females are tend to be out in deeper water, away from the tourist areas. So the students will help spot those from the air. I'm interested in plankton especially, and so I'm distracted by concentrations of that and how that may be a possible food source for some of these big whale sharks since they're filter feeders. So we also engage the local fishermen, reminding them, and they know to go slow and to work around the whale sharks and keep a lid on the tourists trying to touch them and all when they go swimming with them. So again, the Mexican government has done a great job conservation down there and regulations. So here are two of the Mexican graduate students. Well, they're PhDs now. The bottom right, a small tissue. The shark doesn't react when you poke it to get that tissue near the dorsal fin, and so no harm is done. And then the photograph to document it. At night, we look at plankton, try to classify that. Here's some close-ups of those. Some beautiful, beautiful cannonball jellyfish down on the lower right, and lots of crab larvae up at the surface at night. That's on the right, as well as protozoa up on the left. It's all fascinating. And it's right out of the water, so it's still swimming around. And creatures are eating each other under the microscope and all. It's fascinating. So the open ocean is considered, or has been considered, a biological desert compared to the coastline where most of the fish and productivity is. But one of the fish that predominates offshore are flying fish. And I've noted quite regularly we get a lot of the juvenile flying fish. And I know the albatross and a lot of other seabirds will feed on the eggs and juveniles of these. So I kind of wonder whether those might be a food source since they're only an inch less long for the whale sharks when they're swimming offshore with their mouth open. So wrapping up our visit, we go by the hills near La Paz, and the geology down there is mostly volcanic. And there are 3 whale sharks in the picture. Again, I normally do this as a quiz. Of course, the one on my shirt on the left, the one on my little whale shark thumb drive in the middle, and then the basaltic rock outline at the top, which, although the crew, when they're doing whale watch, has identified that as a humpback whale, not a whale shark. I want to thank everybody, Regina and Cindy and the library for this opportunity. I can hang around if there are questions. We'll try to manage those. And again, if you can't find any of the links, these should all be active links to things that we've published about horseshoe crabs and our activities with sharks at the Institute. Okay,
Excellent.
I hope you can, I think I can hear you.
Okay, good. Well, thank you so much, Dave. That was fascinating. So far, we don't have any questions. I just want to remind participants, hold on just one second.
Well, hopefully they didn't all fall asleep.
No, I don't think so, because I have 3 for you. But I just want to remind everyone that you can use the chat features or the question features to type your question. And Cindy, I don't know if you have any questions, but maybe if you do, we could mix yours with mine, so I'm not like dominating the conversation here, and that might give people a chance to type their questions as we go.
Right. I don't see any questions here on my screen right now.
No, but I mean, if you personally had any questions you wanted to ask
Oh,
Dave.
no, I thought it was very, very good. I thought you covered a lot of area, and it was interesting, to hear all the different things about the sharks. And I do want to check out a couple of those books, and we do have them at the library. So, you can't walk into the library right now, but I think you can still get books if you're a state employee. But yeah, I don't have any questions. It was a good presentation, Dave. I really found it fascinating.
Thank
All
you.
right,
I'm flattered.
then I'm going to bombard Dave with my questions.
Okay.
Okay.
I have 3 of them for you.
Okay.
The first one, you mentioned a lot, not only about studying sharks, but about studying species surrounding, and clearly, any animal goes where the food is. How important is researching and understanding prey populations in understanding sharks?
Very important. We have a term for forage fish, are the smaller, dense schools of fish like herring, anchovies, things like that. And they are they're crucial to a lot of these predators, whether they're sharks, seals, or striped bass. But they're also harvested in great quantities for human consumption. Anchovies directly for food, a lot of the herring for their oils, um, even the silvery scales of herring, when those are harvested by the ton, are used for cosmetics and paint flecks and things like that. So we're directly competing with those predatory fish, and we're, rather than gulping down a mouthful here and there as a shark or a seal would, with our giant purse seines, we're harvesting 40 tons of them at a time and cleaning out a whole bay just in a few hours. So this has a tremendous impact on the ecosystem. And again, we generally think of things like, bass and tuna as what people are harvesting, but the industrial fisheries for these forage fish is huge, and like other fisheries, has the potential to be overfished. And of course, that will work its way up the food chain and make life more difficult for the predatory fish at the top.
Interesting. All right, we've gotten a couple questions from attendees, so I'm going to read those off, and then if we have enough time, I may ask mine to give more people the opportunity
Sure.
to type in. We have a question from an attendee that says, so what is the conclusion regarding the type of shark involved in the 1916 attacks? And they offer their opinion that they think it may be a bull shark.
Yeah, well, the white shark story moving up the coast, it makes a great story. And, as the newspaper reporters say, never let the facts get in the way of a good story. But with lack of evidence, and one of the ways we identify shark attacks is since they freely lose teeth when they bite into things, is you can identify sharks by the shape of the tooth. we don't have that evidence in this case. But just going from the ecological evidence of the brackish water up in Matawan Creek and whatnot, I have a feeling it's more a coincidental that the shark that attacked up there, I'm pretty comfortable with was more likely to be a bull shark than a white shark, and it was just coincidence that a white shark was trapped and netted out in the bay a week later. But it's anybody's guess, I guess.
Okay, and then our second question is, so sharks don't give any warning of their presence before they bite?
Not true. If you're in clear water and can see the shark if you're diving, they will, and this has been studied extensively by the U.S. Navy in their efforts to, to rescue pilots and whatnot. Many sharks are territorial and around reefs and whatnot, and they will react to the presence of a diver, like many other creatures will. And there's some great videography that was taken over the years by the Navy of sharks circling, displaying to divers, arching their back, opening their mouth to signal to divers that they were entering their territory. It's again coincidentally that dorsal fin sticks up out of the water, but that certainly should be a good warning to anybody, regardless of the size of the shark, that it's not a good idea to stay in the water. It's like bears, when you see a bear, the smartest thing to do is leave that area. And if you're in murky water, you're not going to have well, like the soldiers always say, you won't see the one that gets you. And the shark doesn't necessarily see you. It senses something, vibrations in the water, electrical impulses, and so it's curious because it's looking for food constantly, and when it bumps into you in the dark or in murky water, it reflexively will snap its jaws or do other damage to you. So, but I would say that and I like to say, if the ocean were as clear as air, most of us would never set foot in it. We could see what's down there and so close to us. So.
Interesting. We have another question. There was a white shark in Raritan that was caught on July 14th. Please clarify, it was mentioned twice. The coincidence just got bigger, wouldn't you say? I guess that's in reference to the white sharks caught versus bull sharks and circumstantial evidence. Yeah.
Well, ideally, if somebody had caught a bull shark up in the Matawan River the same week, that would help solve the problem. But again, I just think from a ecological standpoint, it would be very surprising to find a white shark going up into brackish water, into a narrow creek like that. And some people have speculated, well, maybe it was injured or white shark or whatever. And again, another facet of that, as I said, that a student pointed out to me one time, and I didn't realize it till I looked at the newspaper articles, that was a gravid shark ready to give birth, and it may be that like some other creatures, they don't feed when they're about to give birth, and that helps protect the young. So I'm comfortable sticking with my guns that there's a good chance that there was more than one shark involved, or and that the Mattawan shark, it's a good chance that was something other than a white shark.
Excellent. Okay. Ocean Ramsey is often pictured swimming very close to sharks and touching them, almost glamorizing this activity. Isn't this the wrong message being given to others, especially the danger involved, not to mention we may be endangering them by passing on pathogens that could harm the sharks?
Yeah, I'm not so sure about pathogens, but I agree with that statement. I don't think it's behavior that should be encouraged for a couple reasons, including the fact that it's going to encourage more people to do that. This not only is dangerous and asking for trouble, but this also modifies the behavior of those creatures. And you know, a lot of creatures on land and water will reflexively avoid humans when they see them. And so do we really want to acclimate creatures, especially something as unpredictable as a shark, to the presence of people? And so I think there's a pretty good case against Ocean Ramsey. As much as I am impressed with the pictures, I think that I agree with the questioner on this one.
Excellent. Well, just to give people another second, if they're finishing typing, I'm going to ask another one of my questions, and then I think we'll wrap things up. You had talked about collecting DNA samples, that some people were studying, you know, whale shark genetics to see how they were breeding and, you know, which populations might be breeding. Is shark genetic research something that's, you know, kind of hot right now that researchers are really fascinated with and invested in? And what other kind of genetic research is going on? And are there efforts to build like a shark genome, like the Human Genome Project?
Well, I don't know about that in particular, but I would refer you to Jennifer Schmidt, and you can email her from the Institute website. The concern about whale sharks, as well as a lot of other species of fish, and especially sharks, is their slow reproduction. And if the fishermen around the Philippines are catching all of the whale sharks to sell to the market in Hong Kong, and they wipe out that local population, do other whale sharks from different areas move through there or not? And we just don't know enough about that. I know from Jennifer's work, I think she can definitively say that the sharks are not swimming through the Panama Canal. She's found differences between the Caribbean species variety and the Pacific variety in terms of the genetics. And they wouldn't be swimming around the tip of South America because the water's too cold there. So just as an example, those are isolated populations. So if you kill off all the sharks in the Sea of Cortez, there's no population coming from somewhere else that's going to reestablish that population for a long, long time or forever. And same thing in the Caribbean. So they're a good model and an example of why we need to study the genetics to see how diverse these populations are, how isolated they are, and how much better they need to be managed from harvesting. Again, not just whale sharks, but all of these fish, because a lot of our fishery regulations are based upon the yearly population that's sustained in one particular area. Herring in the Gulf of Maine, herring up in the Gulf of Alaska, salmon in rivers of California. And again, if these fish only come back and breed in one particular area once a year, and you wipe them all out there, then that's it for who knows how long. So.
Interesting. We have another question. Do you feel that Sandy Hook should implement seal colony limits in view of the fact that New Jersey has year-round surfing? Perhaps the seal exit to Cape Cod may parallel white shark migration at the wrong time in the future.
Not sure I understand the question exactly. Limit seal numbers?
Yeah, seal colony limits. I think you had said there were more and more, like at one time, you wouldn't spot very many, but then now you can see up to 60 and all that stuff.
Well, again, you can go out on a hike with my buddy Jeff Demench, who I mentioned earlier, the tagger. He does some trips to look at them. The seals are protected by the Marine Mammal Act, and and I get inquiries from time to time. People see one on the beach and they're afraid it's sick or it's a seal pup, and the first thing I want to do is go up and pet it. I believe you're supposed to be at least, I know out in Hawaii, it's 150 feet. You're supposed to stay away from the monk seals. The same out here. You're not supposed to pet them, come too close to them, scare them, try to feed them. And so there would be really no mechanism to regulate them since they're strongly protected by the government under the Marine Mammal Act. So I don't think we have too much to worry about. And I surf too, and I've seen sharks and mistaken ocean sunfish for sharks, and even seen seals and whales when I've surfed out at Sea Lot at Sandy Hook. And none of it gives me a worry. And as I've gotten older and more tired of wetsuits, I'm only out in the water when the water's warm and the seals are back up in New England anyway. So I'm not overly worried about the seal question or the sharks that might be following them. So I would hope presumably the surfer who asked the question can enjoy the beach in spite of all that.
Excellent. I'm going to ask my last question then, and I hope it's a good way to wrap up. We didn't talk, in the presentation, you talked about some of the conservation efforts, and, what was not obviously stated is that, kind of human population is encroaching on shark activity and affecting them. And of course, those of us who are not professional conservationists or, professional shark researchers may not have enough knowledge. Are there any specific actions that shark lovers, casual shark lovers, or people who are interested in sharks can take to help with conservation efforts?
Well, thank you for that segue. Through the Institute, of course, we have some conservation efforts. One of our big issues is the shark finning problem, where sharks are harvested just for the fins that are sent to Asia and Asian markets for the shark fin soup. And New Jersey has been behind the curve trying to ban that, but progress has been made just in the last year or so, helping to ban not just the harvest, but the transportation of those shark fins through New Jersey to Hong Kong and other areas. we still have along the coast a number of shark fishing tournaments every year, and I don't have any problem with fishing or fishermen if there's good reason to harvest anything. But to kill these sharks just to hang at the dock and take a picture is a tremendous waste of a magnificent animal and an important predator in the sea. And it would be nice if we could somehow change these shark fishing tournaments into shark tagging tournaments or shark study tournaments, and require that the sharks be released if they're not going to be harvested like any fish for food or some other use. And I don't know. Again, I don't know what the audience is today and what we have, what the makeup is. But if there are kids there, you know, and their parents really love them, they could go to our website and adopt a whale shark, and then they could track that whale shark's movements for as long as they're members of Shark Research Institute.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much, Dave, for spending time with us today and for this super interesting presentation. And thank you, too, for allowing me to bombard you with questions. I appreciate it.
It was terrific. And I hope in a year we can do perhaps something annual at the library next year. So
There we go.
Wonderful.
Thank you, Dave. Yeah, thank you, Dave, very much.
Okay.
All right, everyone. Don't forget that for those of you who are still here, that we do have the slides in the handout section of the presentation. If you, for any reason, didn't get them, you can email me. You can email Cindy. You can probably also email Dave, and we can send you the PDF pages of the slides. The link should work fine. I've never had any problems when I convert my PowerPoints to PDF with links. So knock on wood, everything will work. And with that, I hope you all have a wonderful afternoon. Thank you so much for attending today, and we will see you next time.